All right, guys. Late last week, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler was pulled from the UFC 303 lineup. I think the writing was on the wall when the press conference in Dublin did not go down as scheduled. But to the Irishman's credit, he's never pulled out of a fight before, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Excuse me. To boot, Michael Chandler was not given a replacement opponent. Perhaps these two will dance later on in 2024. We'll definitely get to that. But for now, let's hear your reactions to the news. Danny, lead things off.
Well, finally, we get to, I guess, an end. It's an unfortunate end, but it's been really frustrating the last couple of weeks to just see all the rumors, all the speculation, this and that, and just being kind of clueless as to what was going on with McGregor and the UFC. We finally get a resolution. McGregor is out of UFC 300, which triggered a bunch of changes, which we will talk about. I'm assuming soon. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of crazy. McGregor, the biggest star of the sport, we know that he has a small window left to compete. He's 35 years old. We know that most of his career has already played out. What's remaining is just going to be a small portion. And now he's injured. Now he's going to be out for a longer time. Again, he was coming off a pretty bad injury, 35 years of age. It's just not good news, man, for the biggest superstar in the sport. So you do wonder, how is he going to return? Where's his mind at? I mean, this has to be demoralizing. I think a lot of people are not talking about that, but this dude's been off since 2021, and now just on the brink of a return, he gets injured. I wonder where his mind is at as well. So I'm happy that we finally get a resolution, that we find that fans finally know what they're going to get on June 29th, but unfortunately at the expense of Conor McGregor's return. It is some bummer news. I was looking forward to his return, and I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens next.
Mm-hmm. Farah Hanoun, what were your thoughts when all this kind of became official? I mean, I'm sure you had feelings leaning either way. Is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? But eventually we got the news.
Yeah, I mean, like Danny said, it's very unfortunate. But obviously, when the press conference got canceled, a lot of people started speculating. And as Joseph Boza says in the comments section, that UFC was clearly waiting until they had a plan B in place and that they could effectively land that plan, which they did in a new main event. That's when they were going to officially announce it. But yeah, I mean, Connor's never pulled out of a fight in the UFC, so you know that once he does that, that it is serious. And if he's going to want to come back after all these years away, he's going to want to do it right. And listen, historically, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, they haven't been the same since coming back from that leg injury. So it has to be taken extremely seriously. Connor is a showman. He wants to go out there and get his hand raised again. He hasn't since knocking out Cowboy Cerrone back in 2020. So it's been a while since McGregor's had that feeling. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, I think it was pretty expected once the press conference got canceled. I think people started speculating, and what some of us held on to hope that maybe with some time he could realize that he could fight, but time just crept up on us, and the fight is in less than 2 weeks, so that was pretty inevitable, to be honest.
Yeah. They said, or at least McGregor kind of said that, it was very close to the actual press conference. So, your thoughts here, when you heard the news and right away, what did you start thinking, like, should they just preserve this matchup or not? And, give me your thoughts first on the reaction to the fight not happening.
Well, I mean, I think we all kind of just saw it coming little by little, and it hurts because Connor's such a big part of what we do, right? It's kind of like our Super Bowl weekend when this guy fights. So many people fly in from different parts of the world. He's one of those fighters, kind of like in boxing, where you have to say, look, I have to at least see one Manny Pacquiao fight, one Mike Tyson fight, one Floyd Mayweather fight. I think if you're an MMA fan, you want to experience a Conor McGregor fight at least one time. And so much goes into wanting to do that. For that not to deliver, it really, really hurts. And it's just this saga that gets put into limbo again. Michael Chandler, what are you going to do? What situation is he in? Conor McGregor, we still don't really have the answer to what kind of Conor McGregor are we going to get back, because he's been such a big part of our sport. If he comes back and just, as Farah had mentioned, other people, they just don't come back the way they normally do from this injury. We don't really know. We have so many question marks, and so tough as somebody who covers the sport. As a fan, we just kind of wanted something to end here, some kind of finality to this whole saga. And now we're gonna have to wait even longer, and we still don't really have answers for that. So it's been difficult, man. It does kind of suck, but kudos to the UFC for making the adjustments they made and giving us what we have now, but it doesn't feel the same.
Goes, many speculated on what might be going down and not be going down, but do you feel like it was an injury and there wasn't anything else that may have resulted in this not happening?
Yeah, it sounds like an injury, and you know, whatever it is, for them to kind of hold off that little bit that they did, I think kind of leans maybe towards like that sprain area, you know, where sometimes people can just bounce back from something like that. I don't know that it's too major, which is good because, you know, we do want to see this guy fight more than anything too. You know, we want to see Michael Chandler fight too. So whatever it is, it doesn't feel like it's career threatening or anything like that. I think it's just going to postpone things a little bit.
Farah, you're on the opposite side of the world. Sometimes we hear the news trickle in differently. Same thing from your end. Is that what the speculation was out there from your sources, that it was a proper injury, not anything else? Maybe a money issue?
No, I think it is. And I think maybe McGregor years ago would have fought with whatever it is, because they're talking about a rebooking and it doesn't seem like it will be too long after in terms of the fight being rebooked. I think the old McGregor years ago probably would have fought with this injury. But I think people around him at this point in his career said, you know, it's been already 3 years since you've last fought. What's another few months? So I think the mentality is a little bit different right now in terms of his team and the people around him, where why would you come back not at 100%? What do you have to gain? People have waited this long anyway. What's another few months? So I think maybe, and obviously I don't know, I'm just speculating the extent to his injury, but I feel the McGregor of old, hence why we talk about how he's never pulled out of a fight in the UFC. I think the McGregor of old probably would have potentially fought through this injury or with this injury. But I think now the people around him are telling him, like, what's the point if you're not going to be 100%, especially that we've seen the likes of Weidman and Anderson not really come back the same, very tentative. We don't even know, even at 100%, what he would look like mentally, overcoming that hurdle of coming back from that injury. So you definitely want to be physically 100%.
You know, as you were talking, Fad, of course I'm paying attention. You're one of the best in the world at doing this. But for a second there, I did think about the delay of Pacquiao and Mayweather. That took years to happen. When it did, I mean, it was a box office hit. Most pay-per-views ever sold in any type of combat sports. Past their prime, yeah. But did it accomplish what the promotion wanted and what these guys wanted, which is to stack paper? Yes. So yeah, I guess if it's just a few more months, but let's do it right, then yeah, maybe that was more of a business decision coming from McGregor. How about a shout out for Lazy Bed? He's a big Fada Hanoun fan. She is on this week's SVC for the next 50 minutes. How about a like from you, Lazy Bed? Carolyn Oaks Scabetti, hello to you. Joseph Boza, always inside the chat. Trap Jaw says, we are great. Thank you, brother, for tuning in and for your nice comment and for hitting the like button. This will be, like I said, we'll be on for the next 50 minutes discussing some of the latest news here. So you still have time to share with your friends that you're watching the MMA Junkie Radio Spinning Back Clique show. Goes, I want to go to you with something here. McGregor's career, man. What are your thoughts on? Like, is the legacy already set? Right now, he's just kind of adding to it. Does this affect it in any way?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Conor McGregor, he's just a little bit of a special case, right? Like, I think more time needs to play out for us to really be able to answer that question. But I think we kind of know what we have with him, the impact that he's had on our sport, the impact that he's had on other fighters and the way they've handled their career. I think what he's done is pretty much set. The only thing that can help him is possibly winning another belt. But see, even in that discussion, like, the one thing that everybody points out is he just has no title defenses, right? So it just depends on what is it he really has left in the tank and what he wants to give us. But I don't know that it affects his career that much, at least the way we look at him.
Mm-hmm. Danny Segura, let's talk about the other side. Michael Chandler. Should he wait for Conor McGregor? Again, it doesn't sound like a serious injury because it sounded like he was going to maybe try and work through it. They said Hunter Campbell and Heather Linden, from the UFC PI flew over to assess. So, you know, it's like I say, it sounded like it was possibly a situation that could be salvaged. Is Michael Chandler just too far in to bail out at this point?
I think so. And you guys are Las Vegas residents, so you guys will appreciate this analogy. But if you're already down $1,000, what's the difference between losing 11 or 1,200? You know what I'm saying? You just got to keep going. So, dude, he's doubled down so many times for this McGregor fight. If there was a time to pull out, it was probably a year ago. And look, Dustin Poirier is a great example. He fought Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier not only picked up a win, fought twice, but then went on to fight for the title. I think the ship has sailed on pulling the trigger for this one. You just got to go through it at this point. You just got to go through it, especially as Farah said, we hear that the injury might not be as big or as bad as maybe others thought it would be, and is going to be a slight delay. So at this point, man, just wait. You've already waited so long that what's another few extra months? But if you ask me, obviously hindsight 2020, he should have moved on from that fight and be like, McGregor, you still want to fight me? I'll go scrap some other dudes in the meantime and catch some W's. Hit me up in a bit. And he could have easily pocketed a few paychecks in the process. But yeah, man, I mean, I think at this point, you just got to wait for it. McGregor also doesn't seem like he's ready to move on from Chandler, right? Like he's not calling other people out. He's not mentioning Nate Diaz, which he did at some point. So that's good news, I guess, for Chandler. But yeah, I mean, what a crazy ride has been for Chandler. I mean, he's been teased so many times about this fight happening, and it just still hasn't come to fruition. And keep in mind, Chandler's older than McGregor. Like if anybody is playing against the time right here, is Chandler. So yeah, I mean, just tough situation for him. I feel terrible for him. I feel like he's not talked about enough around this situation, but at this point, I would advise him just to wait for it.
Danny, let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you, I agree with you, but what is that timeline, right? If Conor says, I'm ready in 3 months, I'm kind of with you. But if it starts to creep into 5, 6 months, like where do you cut it off?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it all comes down to what opportunities are also presented to him. Because he's like, okay, if I'm not going to fight McGregor, like what's out there for me? Is it to fight somebody unranked in some shitty card, or am I going to get a main event or this and that? So you kind of got to feel out the vibe, right? Like if you get a solid plan B, take it. And that's counting that McGregor won't return in some time. But as of now, I don't think we have a timeline yet on his return. I think this is all too new. But once he gets that, I think he's just got to look at the landscape, sees if there's a big fight for him that can get him close to the title, and go from there. And look, I'll say this. I'm not going to say that Chandler's going to be the next UFC lightweight champion, but with Islam Makhachev at the top and already a lot of the guys losing to him, like Poirier and others, and Gaethje coming off a defeat, I think Chandler's on the short list to fighting for the title. I mean, he hasn't fought Makhachev yet. I would say that he's one of the better guys that properly matches up with the champion. So if you get a short path to the title versus a McGregor fight, and the McGregor fight is kind of shaky still, take the short path, right? But that's all keeping in mind that's if McGregor's return is delayed for some time.
I mean, dude, I'm with you guys on this, but I think at some point Michael Chandler needs to ask himself, what do you want out of your career, right? Because that's a massive payday, that Conor McGregor payday. Of course, everybody wants that. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, as a fighter, what's going to make me happy when I retire? Does legacy mean anything? Because if your goal is, like Danny said, possibly to win a title, maybe even defend it, a lot of big names in that lightweight division, get some wins over those guys, pad that legacy. If that means something to you, then you have to be an active fighter. You can't just show up and fight. Not in the UFC. Like, you have to stay active. You have to get your cage time. And if that means anything to you, then you might have to swallow this pill and get a fight. And if you believe in your skills and your confidence in yourself, you might be able to get that a nice little signature win, and then maybe even revisit the McGregor fight. Or as Danny said, Makhachev, like, I think that's a great fight if it makes sense. And it can, but if you're Michael Chandler, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what is it that I want out of my career? Because you can only go so far not fighting. You make a big paycheck, that's great. But if you want to be a really good fighter, somebody that we're going to be talking about for years, you got to be active, man.
Guys, am I crazy to think that Chandler, out of all the top lightweights right now, has maybe one of the best chances at beating Makhachev? I know he's 38. He's 2 years away from being 40, which that's not a good thing at lightweight. But the guy looks like he's 20 physically. And just styles-wise, I think out of all of them, he probably has the best chance at beating Makhachev. Maybe Sarukian, but it's between those two guys.
Well, Fada, what do you think here? Maybe you should weigh in. Do you think Chandler should wait? And then, like what Danny was saying, if so, do you like the matchup versus Makhachev?
What does Chandler say? He's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. I think, unfortunately, he's here for a long time. But I think what it is with Michael Chandler is that we have to remember he's lost 3 of his past 4, with that lone win coming over a skidding Tony Ferguson. It's risky for him to take another fight. Like, if you look at the landscape at 55, outside of a potential rematch with Charles Oliveira, which you could potentially make sense out of, he's fought kind of the big names, the Poiriers, the Gaethjes, the Oliveras. You look down in the rankings, it's Gamrot and other talented fighters, but he may not have too much to gain out of fighting them. Like, it's a risky fight because those guys are tough matchups for him, but it's risky. With a Conor McGregor, he knows that the reward is big, the name value, the money, and everything that comes with it. So that's why I think he should wait, because when I come to think of any other options outside of a Charles Oliveira, I just think it's risky business for him at this point in his career. And I know he wants big fights. I know he wants pay-per-view spots, and I know he wants to fight for the title. So I think the McGregor fight is what he should wait for. Now, of course, we don't know how long that's going to have to be, but he's waited all this time. I think he might as well just wait a couple more months. You know, it's already been quite a while, and I just don't see, outside of an Oliveira rematch, I just don't see who else he could fight. Not who he could fight, period. I could match him up with anybody. But in terms of what he would have to gain and why he would give up a fight with McGregor for something else.
You know, about a year ago, Dustin Poirier fights in the BMF title fight, or whatever it's called, and he gets iced by Justin Gaethje. So we're all thinking, okay, Gaethje's now in the pole position, and you know, then Gaethje loses, and Sarukin's not ready to go, and Poirier beats Benoit Saint Denis and gets a title shot, and he fought very valiantly in that title shot, you know, just under a month ago. Man, you just got to be ready, but you got to be out there. I think Chandler should take another fight, even if it's a rematch against someone, win, and just be ready. He may get a title fight, and then McGregor comes to him, because McGregor's just, it's just too questionable with him. I believe it was an injury, but I think these are good questions coming in from the chat. I'm encouraging the chat to ask stuff and comment. So let's put these to the panel. Edward says there is speculation that the leg injury is a narrative covering up his drug issues that he needs to get over before he fights. Dan, you think there's any truth to that?
I mean, never say never, right? With McGregor, anything's possible, but I don't know. I think, you know, it's no secret that he likes to party. He's probably been doing this for a long stretch of his career. Obviously it's a little bit different now at 35 than it is maybe when he was, you know, in his 20s. But no, I do think it was some sort of injury. Just everything just kind of points at that. I think the vibe from Dana would have been much different if that was the issue. You know, Dana doesn't always say everything, but he says sometimes a lot in cryptic messages, and you can kind of tell where the vibe is, and it all points to injury. So I would like to think not, but I don't think that's a crazy theory to throw out there.
Joseph Boza says, yeah, what does the panel think of the speculation that Conor ain't hurt and that this injury is just an excuse because he would have popped for drugs? We know how strict Nevada Commission is. I think he's implying performance-enhancing drugs. I think the first question was more towards the partying issue. So since Danny answered that, I'll just answer this one quick. I don't know. I really think it was an injury, because that was a late idea that Lene Breckenridge came up with for them to go out to Dublin, Ireland. So had something like this already happened, I mean, look, I guess he could have popped that morning, right? Gotten the news that he pissed and something came up. But to me, it really does sound like some sort of an injury happened here, late notice. And he knew what he was getting into once he got back into the USADA testing protocol, which is now Drug-Free Sport International. And McGregor has over 50 tests. So he's always been a clean competitor. He is coming back from a very serious injury, but he has the money to retire. He doesn't have to fight. So I just don't think it's that. My thoughts. I don't know.
Also, the commission testing is the easiest to get by, because you know when you're going to get tested, so you can plan around that. That's why when the UFC was just having events without any anti-doping program, like, you rarely saw people get caught by commissions. It was really this third-party entity that has been catching people. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, for sure. But look, I think they're going to fight at some point in 2024. So my thoughts are just, if Chandler got presented a Gaethje rematch sometime in July or August, I would jump on that and deal with McGregor later in the year. I think he could still get that matchup possibly. I don't know, because I don't think McGregor walks into a title shot. He'll have to walk into a name, and this name's already been dressed up. So Chandler might be able to get, you know, a 2-for-1.